Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. Today we're going to be going over a fluid simulation where I show you how to create a fluid simulation with a bunch of obstacles. So let's go ahead and hop into it. Very first thing we're going to do in our document here is I'm just going to add in a cube, and then I'm going to click on Object, Quick Effects, Quick Liquid. I'm also going to make my face smaller. Sorry guys, it's taking up the whole screen. And as you guys can see, we already have a fluid simulation if you press play. Now obviously these are just the particles. Nothing has been baked yet. There's no mesh associated with our liquid. Now, our goal today is to put some objects in the way of this liquid. So the very first thing I would like to do, if I save my project here, is go to my side view here, click on my domain. So this outer box right here is going to be our domain. I'm going to scale it on the x-axis, make it much wider, and then I'm going to move what is emitting our fluid object also on the x-axis over here. And as you guys can see, we're not going to have any simulation anymore because we moved some things around. We'll need to rebake. So let's go ahead and click on our domain. Scroll down here on the right-hand side. Now you're going to want to pick a folder for your things to go into. So for your actual bake, I'm just going to click on New, Accept. Now you just need a general folder. I'm also going to make the end frame 100, and then where it says replay here, we're going to want to click on that and click on all, and then we're ready to bake. So click on Bake All. As you guys can see, when we play this back, we have our fluid simulation. Now, not a lot is going on here because there's no objects to interact with, but before we put some objects in there, I'm going to go ahead and select this option on the right-hand side here that says Mesh, and then I'm going to free all down here where the cache is, and I'm going to click on Bake All again, and I just want to show you guys the difference. Now, as you can see, we have an actual physical liquid here. Now, this is a very low resolution. In other words, it's not high quality, but we'll come back to that later. So now that we know that our fluid simulation is working properly, I'm going to click on Free All again. Now, we're in wireframe mode here, so whenever we add something, we're only going to see the outline of it. But I want to go ahead and add an obstacle. Let's go ahead and add another cube. Let's go ahead and move it towards the bottom. Now just make sure it is not going through the bottom of your domain here. I'm going to scale it on the z-axis, scale it down a little bit, move it up. And I want to move it like right here. Now it should just be right in the center. So this is going to be our first test object that we're going to interact with. Now the way that we make this interactable with the fluid is we want to actually add a fluid property to it. So over here on the Physics tab, add a fluid property, type. We're going to click on Effector. So now what that means is that the fluid is actually going to interact with this object. Go ahead and also apply the scale of your object as well. Now everything should be set up. Now we're going to have to do some experimenting with the numbers, but let's go ahead and rebake our simulation. So we're going to go ahead and rebake, and now our fluid should be kind of stopped by this cube. Let's go ahead and see if it is. There you go. So as you guys can see, we have some of the cube kind of stopping this simulation here. Now you'll notice it's not perfect. If we go to our top-down view and we click on our cube, you'll notice that it's kind of going inside of the cube. There's a few reasons for that. The first reason is that our simulation is very low quality. So the first thing I'm going to try out is I'm going to free all under my cache here. And now I'm going to bump this up to a resolution of 50. And as you can see, that little cube in the corner there, guys, right here, got smaller. That is our particle size. Let's go ahead and see what we get now when we bake. So when we bake right now, you can see it's a much higher quality. But still, we're not getting that perfect edge around our cube. Everything is kind of still going through the cube. So the next thing we want to take a look at is the actual settings of our effector. So we have our effector selected here, guys. And as you can see, the fluid is just going right through it. The reason for that is most likely because of the surface thickness. As you can see, the surface thickness on the right-hand side is set to 0. Let's go ahead and set that to 0.1. And then let's click on our domain, free all, and let's bake one more time. Any changes that you make to your fluid simulation, you have to rebake them or it will not work. This is looking a little bit better if we play this back. We're still not getting quite there. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to free my simulation again. I'm going to click on my effector, and I'm going to raise this up to like 0.2. And let's go ahead and see what we have now. Bake all. Go ahead and give that a second to bake. And as you guys can see, it's getting a little bit better, I think. What we're going to do, one more thing, we're going to free all again, and we're going to bump this up to a resolution of 80. Usually when you bump the resolution up, you automatically get a higher quality fluid simulation regardless. When we end up actually baking this, we're going to be using a value like 256. All right, let's go ahead and play this back. Now that is more like it. Okay, so let's go to our top-down view now. As you can see, it's much closer to the edge here. We can just kind of, we should be able to just mess with the surface thickness at this point to get it exactly like we want it. As you can see, it's looking really, really awesome. Now it's only going to go out to about frame 100 because that's what we have it baked out to. So let's go ahead and back up a little bit here. I am going to click on my domain again, and I'm going to click on free all. And then I'm going to go ahead and adjust my surface thickness to something like 0.4. Again, this should fix it. Let's go ahead and rebake this one more time, see if this works out. If it doesn't, we'll go into some other settings. There's a lot of different factors that play in here, especially the resolution of our actual liquid. All right, let's go ahead and take a look now. Still not quite there, but it's darn close. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to free all again. I'm going to bump this up to 125 for our resolution. And go ahead and click on bake all. Now, guys, as you raise your resolution, it's going to take a lot longer to actually bake, so be very, very patient. As you guys can see on the bottom, my computer is pretty quick, but fluid simulations just take a lot of processing power in general, even when you have the type of graphics card that I have. So just be super patient with this. We're going to go ahead and let this run. Just give this one moment here to finish baking. Now, keep in mind, guys, this is half the resolution that I would normally use. I've seen people use a resolution of like 600 before. That's pretty crazy. You can do that if you want. You're going to be waiting days for your actual animation to bake, or your fluid simulation to bake. All right, it looks like we are done here. Let's go ahead and take a look at what this looks like. Now, this is our top-down view. This is looking a lot better. As you guys can see, we're a lot closer to that edge there. At this point, you should be able to adjust your surface thickness. Let me go ahead to solid view so you guys can see what's really happening here. That looks awesome. So as you guys can see, this is what 125 for your resolution looks like. It looks really good. Look at those fluid dynamics right there. That just looks really awesome. And as you can see, it is kind of still touching right here if we go to our X-ray mode, but it really isn't. So at this point, we should be able to just keep bumping up our resolution and we'll get a higher result, a better result, but this just looks so good. Let's go ahead and do some shading and materials, lighting, stuff like that real quick. And then we're going to rebake this at 256 and kind of see what happens here. So I'm going to go over to my actual rendered view. Now you're not going to see anything right away because we don't have an environment. So let me go ahead and add in an environment texture. You guys can get these off of polyhaven.com. I'm just going to click on this one. That looks fine. As you guys can see, automatically by default, Blender will give you kind of like a glass shader here. I just realized we're in Eevee. We should not be in Eevee. I'm going to go ahead and switch to cycles and GPU. Wow, that looks so much better. Go ahead and add in a plane here, scale it up, go to my side view and just bring it below our surface here. That looks good. Now at this point, we can kind of go into any type of shading we want. For now, I'm going to go ahead and hide that original cube. That is our actual fluid object. We don't really need that right now. I'm going to go ahead and click on my liquid and give this a nice exaggerated blue color. That looks great. And then I'm going to click on my cube and I'm going to give that just like maybe a darker gray shader. That looks fine. And then for our floor, I'll just give it a nice metallic shader with like a lower roughness. I always think that looks nice with water. It just gives a really, really nice effect. And now if we go back to the beginning and we play this back, it just looks so awesome. Now, this is a low resolution. That's what's really interesting about this, is that we can get even more like high quality with this actual effect here. Now, one of the things I want to try real quick is, first of all, I'm going to go ahead and click on my camera and reposition it over here. I'm going to go to my top-down view. I'm just going to rotate my camera, snap to it, and I think I'm going to give myself an orthographic perspective. I'm also going to make this 1080 by 1920. We're probably going to be using this for Instagram at some point. I'm going to adjust my orthographic scale, scale up my main plane right there. I'm also going to click on my camera and bring it up on the Z-axis. And I'm going to kind of rotate it around, adjust the scale here. Again, you guys can kind of make this whatever you want. I just want to kind of get everything in frame here. There we go, much better. Cool. This is starting to look really good. I'm going to also adjust the framing a little bit more. I want this to be centered. Now, at the end of the day, I can probably get away with like maybe a slightly lower angle, but I'm just trying to set up like a nice camera angle here so we can kind of see what's happening. As you guys can see, the fluid drops down, kind of interacts with our barrier here. Now, what I would really like to do, if we go back to our regular view here, is I would like to have this be like maybe 2 barriers. So let's go ahead and unbake the simulation, free all. I'm going to go back to X or wireframe mode here. I'm going to bring my resolution back down to like 60 for now, just for testing purposes. I'm going to go ahead and move my my object here. I'm going to scale it down, kind of like this. Bring it down here, and then I'm also going to scale it on the X as well. Now, what I would like to do is just kind of create this thin thing that the fluid has to interact with, but I want to Shift D to duplicate it, and then bring it over on the Y-axis. So now we have these 2 objects that are both going to interact with our fluid simulation. So I'm really curious to see what this is going to look like right here. Let's go ahead and click on our domain and bake all again. Let's go ahead and see what kind of result we get here. Cool. Okay, so this is kind of what I was going for, is this liquid kind of seeping through in the middle here. Now imagine this at a higher quality. Obviously this is the low quality version of the simulation, but imagine how cool that's going to look if we actually go and bake that. And then another thing I want to show you guys is I'm going to go ahead and free all again, go back to wireframe mode. I'm going to duplicate this one more time and put it like right there. So now we have 1, 2, 3 obstacles. Guys, make sure that the bottom doesn't interact too much. You don't want this bottom to be through the through that piece. Sorry, through the domain. Actually, our plane was through the domain as well, but it's okay because the plane doesn't have any physics. As you guys can see, we have our 3 obstacles set up. I'm going to go ahead and bake this at like 125 again, and we're just going to chat through it. Let's go ahead and bake this. Again, we're only doing 100 frames here. I'll probably do something that's more like 300 frames, and I'll do the resolution at like 256. I just wanted to show you guys like what is possible with this and how cool of an effect you can get with just making these awesome fluid simulation effectors. Again, this is all built into Blender. This is all free. You do not need an add-on for this. This is completely free. As you guys can see, for some reason, this simulation is actually running much faster, which I totally didn't expect. I didn't expect that at all, actually. I thought it was going to go a lot slower because we have more obstacles, but as you can see, it's going much quicker this time. Let's go ahead and see what it's going to look like. Wow, look at that. Let me get out of X-ray mode here. So this is really, really interesting here. Let's go ahead and take a look. Whew! Wow, look at that. That is cool. Imagine that at a higher resolution. Now, just to show you guys what this higher resolution would look like real quick, I'm going to unbake this. I'm going to go up to 50 frames here, and I'm going to set this to 256. Let's go ahead and bake this, right? Now, watch how long this is going to take. Go ahead and just take a look down there. Okay, not actually as long as I thought. It's actually going a lot quicker than I thought it would. We're going to wait this out for a second. Now, at this point, Blender is calculating a lot of things. So be patient. I would highly suggest that you don't do what I'm doing. Do not have another program like OBS recording in 4K 30 FPS while you're trying to bake this animation. That is the reason it's going so slow, and just because there's a lot of things to calculate. Now we're calculating out to frame 50 here. The only reason I'm doing that and not like 300 frames is because I want to show you guys what's possible when you bump that resolution up and how realistic you can really get just with Blender's built-in fluid simulator technology. There's also something called Flip Fluids, which is an add-on. I think it costs like $80 or something like that. Totally cool. I've seen it happen. My friend has it and he's used it, and it's really, really realistic, like super realistic. But again, this is what we're going to be working with right now. So we're going to go ahead and wait till this thing gets to about frame 50, and hopefully it doesn't crap out here. You guys are probably going to have some moments where you're baking your animation or your fluid simulation and it crashes on you. Be patient. It's just something that happens. Again, make sure you have enough space to actually store this fluid data. It does take up quite a bit of space. Eventually, you're going to want to clear all your caches out. So just go back, revisit those old files, clear your caches out. If you guys are having issues, you can also message me on Instagram. There's a lot that goes into this fluid simulation stuff, and it just takes forever. As you can see, I'm still waiting only for 50 frames, so it just takes a long time. So just be patient. Go walk away from the computer, come back when it's done, find something to get done around the house or whatever it is that you need to work on. Just be patient. It takes a long time. As you guys can see, we're almost on frame 40 here, so kind of excited to see what this is going to look like, though. Again, this is only 50 frames, guys. Imagine how long it would take, when you take a look at a movie like Avatar or something like that. I mean, we're talking hours and hours and hours upon hours. But again, they had a built-in algorithm for their fluid simulations, and they literally look more real than real life. So it's just incredible to see where the technology is going. But as you guys know, we have Blender, which is a free program, so we're doing the absolute best that we can with what we have. I still think it's pretty awesome that you can even do this at all for free, completely for free. The only thing it costs is your time. So we're on frame 43 here. We're almost there. I'm hoping my computer will be okay once this is done. Again, this is a lot of data, especially when you're actually converting this to a mesh as well. If you didn't have mesh selected, it would still run your fluid simulation, and you could look at the way that the particles move. Some people like to do that so they don't have to wait as long. I think it takes a little bit less time if you're not converting it to a mesh. But all of this mesh data is being stored in our cache folder to be referred to in Blender. So basically, each frame is a separate mesh that Blender is then recalling, and it's putting these frames back to back to make it look like a fluid simulation, when in reality, all it is basically these particles converted into a mesh, or what this liquid would actually look like. So here we go. It looks like we're about on frame 50 here. Really excited to see what this is going to look like here. It says it's about to be done. Let's see. All right, it says it is done. Now, you're probably saying, where is it? Well, you have to go back to the actual frames where it occurred. So let's go ahead and play this back. This is probably going to run pretty slow, not at 30 FPS. Look at that, though. Look at that. Wow. That is incredible. Now, look at the way that it is warping around these walls here. That is just incredible. Let's go to render view real quick. Wow. Guys, this is what you get with 256 of your resolution. So again, this is 256 right now. I don't remember how I came up with that number or where it came from, but this is what you get. Now we're at about frame 29. If we keep going forward, you'll see that everything kind of starts to break apart. But this is the kind of quality you can get with this type of fluid simulation. Do I think it looks awesome? Heck yeah. Now again, this isn't like hyper realistic, but this is as realistic as you can get with a Blender fluid simulation. So I wanted to show you guys how to do that. I will be baking this out at full res. I think I'm going to go up to like 300 frames or so. So I will try to show that on either an Instagram reel or at the end of this video. But I do hope you guys enjoyed this. And then when you guys are finally ready to render your animation, of course, you can snap to your camera view, kind of do maybe a test frame here. I'll just go over some really quick render settings. By default, Blender has 4,096 samples. You don't need that many. It really frustrates me that they put it that high because I don't know why they do that. I'm going to go ahead and drop that down to like 125. Denoising, we're going to do optics, and then light paths. We'll just set everything to, let's see. We'll set everything to 5. Well, except for transmission and volume. That's fine. 5, 10, 15, 23. And then we'll set the total to 23. You can enable fast GI approximation, but I just want to point this out, guys. When you enable fast GI approximation, it will make your renders faster, but watch what it does to the fluid. Completely ruins the look of the fluid. So I would suggest against that if you want a good looking render. We're at 1080 by 1920. Let's just go ahead and render this and see how long it takes. I'm anticipating less than 30 seconds. Let's see if we actually get that. We are looking at almost less than 15 seconds here. All right, that was 11 seconds, and it looks pretty good. You guys can bump those samples up if you want. We're also really zoomed out. Our lens is really far from the scene. So at this point, you guys can go ahead and render out all your frames. You can compile them together in Blender. This is going to look really, really good when it's done. I really appreciated the way that this came out. Now I'm going to have to render this out at a very, very high resolution for many, many frames, so we'll probably be waiting for quite some time. But again, guys, I think you guys are really going to enjoy the result here. I just wanted to show you how to make these obstacles interact with the fluid. Again, it takes a lot of experimenting, so be patient and experiment. That is what this program is about. A lot of people don't take the time to actually dive into these details to get the results that they want, and then they see other people achieving these results. It's because other people have put a lot more time into actually figuring out what looks best and what settings work best for your project. Everybody's project is different, so be patient when you guys are creating these things, and don't expect great results right away. Good things take time. So be patient with your project, and be patient when you guys are actually baking these fluid simulations, because they take absolutely forever. I'm just giving you a fair warning now. You're going to get impatient with your project. I do it all the time. Sometimes you just got to walk away. So guys, with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy this tutorial. I hope you learned something. If you did, drop a comment down below. Let me know how you're going to use this in your project. Also, let me know what you guys would like to see next. Also, keep in mind, I do have a Gumroad with my digital assets, and I've recently launched a Blender Market asset library as well. So guys, just search me on there, Kenny Phases. I will be putting out more fluid tutorials in the future. We do have a Discord. We are growing and we are very strong. We have about 500 members or more, and there's usually like at least 100 people online at a time ready to answer your questions. So guys, drop a comment in there as well. Everything will be linked down in the description below. Hope you have a great day. Take care, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.